Alright mates, how's it going? In today's video, I'm covering the Shattering and invasion of Gilneas from Chronicle Volume 3. So let's get... The Cataclysm had begun. The natural disasters that had been ravaging Azeroth recently were nothing in comparison. N'Zoth had given the word, and so Deathwing unleashed his power. He exploded from Deepholm into Azeroth, and the boundaries between the elemental plane and the physical world were broken. Mountains crumbled to dust, fiery chasms tore open in the earth, tsunamis annihilated seaside towns and caused widespread flooding. The entire bloody world looked different, and to be honest, slightly better in most cases because the graphics had been updated. But casualties were in the thousands, and this was just the beginning. Many more will die, so that sucks. Deathwing himself was absolutely brimming with rage, mainly because he was in excruciating pain, which N'Zoth was sneakily aggravating. So he was just flying around all over the place, setting fire to cities and forests and stuff. He even descended on Stormwind and burned parts of that city to the ground. Soldiers gathered to face the Black Dragon aspect, but he cheesed it before they had a chance to fight. It wasn't his intention to destroy the city, he needed the people of Stormwind alive. What he really wanted was to break them so they could be remade into his servants. And he kinda got what he wanted, because many of Stormwind's citizens turned to Archbishop Benedictus for counsel. They had no idea he was now a member of the Twilight's Hammer cult. He preyed on their desperation and guided them into the cult's embrace, because he's a jerk. Anyway, Deathwing's destruction seemed pretty indiscriminate and random to most people, but there was some method in his madness. Whilst he was wreaking havoc and distracting everyone, he'd ordered Cho'Gall and the Twilight's Hammer cult to come out of hiding and get themselves ready. They headed into the highlands just north of Ironforge. This region had a large population of Wildhammer dwarves, as well as the remnants of the Dragonmaw Orc clan who'd settled there after the Battle of Grim Batol. But neither the Orcs nor the dwarves were prepared for the Twilight's Hammer, because they just appeared out of bloody nowhere. The cult carved out a stronghold in the heart of the region, which Cho'Gall named the Bastion of Twilight, and this became their base of operations, as well as a place for the cult's members to worship their unseen gods. Void energies bled from the spire, warping the nearby terrain and mutating all life. The land itself darkened, and so the region started being called Twilight Highlands after that. Far to the south, other cultists established a foothold in Blackrock Mountain and started to mould new weapons. They recovered the bodies of Nefarian and Syntharia, and then just reanimated them with void magic. The two dragons retained a little bit of their former personalities, but were now 100% obedient to the Twilight's Hammer. Syntharia continued her work crafting Twilight dragons, and Nefarian did his thing, making chromatic dragons. And you'd think, with all this chaos and the world seemingly falling apart, the faction war would yet again take a back seat. But you'd be wrong, because these people are idiots. The Horde and Alliance were still very much dead set on destroying each other. Thrall was now at a crossroads, figuratively. The Horde needed him to be Warchief, but the world needed him to be a Shaman. And Agra's advice was really starting to make some sense. He couldn't be both. He had to choose. And deep in his heart he knew the path of healing the world was the right one. If Azeroth is destroyed as Draenor had been, there'd be no Horde left to lead anyway. So Thrall and Agra gathered with a neutral faction called the Earthen Ring. They were a group of Shaman dedicated to maintaining balance between the elements. And since it's a neutral faction, it included Shaman from both the Horde and the Alliance, who put aside their differences for the good of the world. They all journeyed to the place where Deathwing had burst into Azeroth, the Maelstrom, a fierce vortex of water that was created when the Well of Eternity collapsed into itself during the Sundering. But it was a lot more unstable now, thanks to Deathwing. The instability at the Maelstrom was cascading across the world, making the elemental spirits even more batshit crazy. The Earthen Ring needed to heal this rift, if there was going to be any hope of stopping this destruction. And the reason I'm telling you all this is because with Thrall at the Maelstrom, Garrosh now had free reign to do whatever he wanted. His war with the Alliance wasn't going to stop just because everything was exploding. If anything, it was even more necessary now. He decided the Horde needed to expand its holdings in the Eastern Kingdoms in order to gather more resources and further strengthen themselves. And the Cataclysm had presented him with the perfect target, Gilneas. They'd escaped invasion from outside forces in the past due to the Greymane Wall, but earthquakes had shattered part of it, so they were actually vulnerable for a change. And Garrosh wasn't the only member of the Horde that wanted Gilneas. Sylvanas Windrunner was quite eager to bring the kingdom under her dominion, so she convinced Garrosh to give her control of the invasion force, and then off she went to lead that. Gilneas themselves weren't exactly having a whale of a time anyway. A recent civil war, called the Northgate Rebellion, had chipped away at the kingdom's strength. Plus they'd been ravaged for years by something much darker, the Worgen Curse. Many citizens had been transformed into feral wolf beasts, and these creatures were slaves to their own rage, unable to tell friend from foe. Even King Gen Greymane himself had fallen victim to the curse. However, things weren't all doom and gloom. some Night Elves had sensed Archmage Rugel's spell pulling the wolf beasts from the Emerald Dream, and they travelled to Gilneas to investigate. When they arrived and saw what was going on within the kingdom, they couldn't help but feel a little bit responsible. So they performed a ceremony called the Ritual of Balance, in order to make all the Worgen calm down. And it worked. They didn't cure the curse completely. The Gilneans were still werewolves, but their bloodlust had gone. Gen Greymane rallied both human and Worgen alike, and reminded them that they were all Gilneans, and Gilneans never give up. And then he was like, also the Horde are currently attacking us, so we should probably do something about that. So the Horde invasion force and the Gilnean army clashed. There were heavy losses on both sides, but King Greymane probably had the worst time. Sylvanas fired a poisoned arrow at him, but it never struck its target, because his Mong son Liam got in the way and died instead. Also, Sylvanas was pushed to desperate measures and unleashed her plague on Gilneas City, because that's what she does. She tries to do a thing, kind of fails, and then she releases her plague. It's like a hobby or something. Gen and his people were forced to retreat, and things were now not looking very good for them. But a fleet of Night Elven ships appeared on the coast, and once again, these hippies from across the sea had saved the day. The decision to abandon the home of his ancestors was tough for Gen, but it was the only option. If the remaining Gilneans stayed, they'd die. So he gave the order for his people to board the elven ships, and they set sail for Darnassus. But Gen vowed, even if it takes me years, even if it costs me my life, I will return, and I will restore Gilneas to its former glory. You bunch of dicks. And we're leaving it there! In the next Volume 3 video, the Bilgewater Cartel, which is basically the Goblin starting zone again, but not half an hour long this time, plus the Worgen officially join the Alliance, which annoys Varian immensely. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, all of that bollocks, and all that's left to say is, thanks for watching, and see ya!